Hi, my name's Ross McPherson. I'm the president of CareerQuest and also the resume and LinkedIn expert for BeyondBschool.com. Let me cut straight to the point. There are two key things you need to know about your resume and your LinkedIn profile. The first one is you have to market your value to a potential employer. That's what you're trying to do. They need to know not just what you've done, but how well you've done it. Secondly, because you're up against some stiff competition for these roles, you have to, at the same time, outmarket your competition. When a company's looking to hire new talent, they're really looking for the candidate that offers them the most and best ROI for their investment. Now, you can tell them what you've been doing for the last little while. You can tell them your responsibilities and what you've been doing and whether the jobs are relevant to it. But that really only just tells them what you were doing. It doesn't tell them how well you were doing it. And you can tell them how fantastic and creative and motivated and wonderful you are, but those are really just claims. What you've got to do, to be honest, is a little bit of proof. And that's where accomplishments come in. So you need to tell them not just what you did, but also how well you did it, who benefited and how. By how much? How did you specifically make the company or whoever it is you work towards or for bigger, better, faster, leaner, more profitable, more effective, more streamlined, more efficient? That's the sort of thing they're after. And it makes sense. But this is an area that a lot of people have trouble in, is how to build these accomplishment statements. And one of the issues that I have, and I'll just address it quickly, is a lot of people believe that you're bragging when you do this. And I'm not asking you to brag. Bragging is something entirely different. What I'm asking you to do is just recognize what you're good at and give me examples of when you've actually done it. Here's how this is going to be structured. Over the last number of years, I've worked with hundreds of MBA candidates and graduates just like you. And I have worked on their resumes and their LinkedIn profiles. And when I'm gathering that information from my clients, I ask these very same types of questions when I'm trying to populate that list of achievements and accomplishments that's going to go in their documents. So what I'd like you to do is, with each question, simply jot down your answers to each question and try to be as specific as possible, because that's actually going to help. The specificity and the details actually do make a difference. First, what sort of shape was it in when you started the job? So be specific. When you started the job, was it in bad shape? How bad was it? What was wrong? What wasn't there? Are there specific numbers that reflect the shape that things were in? Then, what did you turn it into? Again, try to be specific. How did you make it better? By how much is it better? Are there better numbers that reflect what you were able to turn it into? Did you make more money, save money? What did you start with and what were you able to turn it into? What was your performance in that role measured against? So if you think about your performance evaluations, take a look at what measurables or what specific targets or what specific performance your performance is measured against, and how did you perform against that? Again, that's a very good way of listing specifically what they were looking for in that job. Also, what are you most proud of having accomplished? And sometimes this is even outside of those things that you're measured against. What are you most proud of having achieved in that role? Another question is, did you work on any specific projects or initiatives that are worth mentioning? And likewise, are there any initiatives or projects that are completely outside your job description that are kind of unique, that again, talk about the kind of value and ROI that you can bring to a company? There are many ways of looking at the great work that you've done and then articulating those as accomplishments in your resume and your LinkedIn profile. To keep it simple, though, I've identified 3 different types of accomplishments. The first is a result or a benefit-oriented accomplishment. Second is scope or complexity, that type of accomplishment. And the third is a before and after. Probably the most common way of looking at accomplishments is as a result. So in other words, did you increase something like sales or market share? Did you decrease something like throughput or reduce costs, that kind of thing? If there is something that's a specific result of the work, and ideally if it's measurable, jot that down and try to be as specific as possible. So it looks something like this. Increased revenues 47% over previous year by rationalizing customer base and focusing efforts on Tier 1 accounts. So you can see the specific result, and we even added a quick little blurb as to how, in this case by rationalizing the customer base. Another example is, within the first year, grew revenues 8% while reducing workforce by 25%. Again, very measurable, very specific result. Another example could look like, helped secure the single largest outsourcing agreement in the company's history, a multi-year contract valued at over $30 million. So again, a very specific result, very measurable result. Fourth example, it could also look like this. Introduce the quality enhancements that improved first pass yield up to 40% for premium brands. So you'll see all 4 of these examples are very specific results. Now, I know what some of you are saying. Sometimes there is no measurable result. Some IT work, for example, or HR work, or policy work, the work isn't measurable in the truest sense of the word, not the result isn't as measurable. In these cases, consider the benefit of the work. In other words, what was the upside? What problem did it fix? What did it enable people to do? Did the work facilitate improved communications, for example, across the division? Did it protect the company from risk or liability? Did it position the company for improvements or growth down the road? These are not measurable per se, but still they're very powerful and help the company. Here's some examples of what those types of accomplishments can look like. Designed and developed a new Excel-based process that improved expense tracking, reduced errors, and streamlined month-end reporting. Again, you see the benefit of the work that was done. If you simply said that you created a new Excel-based process, that's just something you did. Remember, we're trying to sell and market your ROI, so put the benefit down there. Second example, spearheaded critical cultural changes across the organization, decentralizing operations and creating work environments that encourage ownership and reward achievement. Again, you see the benefit to the work done. Not measurable, but very legitimate. Third, introduce new health and safety programs that reduce lost time incidents and lost time days to below industry average. Again, not a specific result, but a legitimate and very real benefit to the company. Another way of looking at accomplishments is to tell us the scope or the complexity of the work that you did. In other words, was it enterprise-wide, for example? Was it national or was it international? A $10,000 project or a $10 million project? Did it impact a small market or a large market? Here's what I mean. Instead of just saying manage the delivery of the Jumpstart program for a national vendor network, give me more detail on the scope or the complexity of the work or the project. Something more like this. Led the team that developed and delivered a $1.2 million sales training program to over 1,200 vendors nationally in both English and Spanish. See, now I get it. Now I'm impressed. Now I see the scope and the complexity of the type of work that you do and the type of work you can manage. So let me show you a couple other examples of scope and complexity. Led the training strategy and operations for a national division with over 30,000 employees across 800 chapter sites, both domestic and international. So you can see there's no specific result or benefit, but it's the scope or the complexity of the work that's impressive. Created and implemented new market-specific strategies designed to capitalize on new business opportunities in Germany, Spain, Italy, Sweden, Norway, and France. Again, it's the scope of it. Directed all stages of a $20 million infrastructure project and coordinated the activities of 5 separate project teams. And similarly, project managed up to 20 concurrent development projects with full accountability for all project planning, business and technical specifications, budgeting, forecasting, timelines, and implementation. Again, it's the complexity and the scope of the work that we're trying to impress and convey here. The third type of accomplishment, the before and after accomplishment, looks at what you started with and what you finished, what you turned it into. So if you remember at the beginning when I talked about the questions to get you started, I asked you to consider what did you start with in the role and what did you turn it into? This is where these are really going to come in handy. Here's what I mean. Turned a struggling territory from number 5 to number 1 in the region by rationalizing the client base and focusing efforts on Tier 1 accounts. So here's a before and after, similar to one we looked at before. Likewise, rebuilt an underperforming operating infrastructure and positioned it for growth. Integrated the new strategy, reorganized staffing models, and put new cost controls in place. So again, started with something that was underperforming and turned it into something better. Transformed the company from a stalled $80 million energy contractor into a $550 million industry leader with Fortune 500 accounts across North America. A very clear before and after. And likewise, successfully salvaged a $15 million project plagued with major delays and cost overruns. Rebuilt the project roadmap, refocused the team, and met all subsequent milestones on time and on budget. Again, another example of started with something that had major delays and cost overruns and turned it around into something much better. So to this point, you've built an inventory of accomplishments, and we've seen the different types of accomplishments that you can add as well. Now let's start refining it and really look at how you write these, how you actually construct them. The first thing to remember is there's no one formula for how to write an accomplishment. If actually there was a formula, every resume would sound the same, and that actually would be a bad thing. So what I am going to give you is I'm going to give you a bunch of guidelines. The first is be concise. Resume writing really does need to be concise. So you're going to have bullet points, for example, all the way through your resume. If you have a bullet point that's 5 lines long, it's not really a bullet point, it's a paragraph, and I guarantee you almost no one's going to read it. So you really do want to try to keep these to about 2 lines. The next is to provide some detail and be specific. Now I know I just told you to try to be concise, and now I'm asking you to add more detail. It's not about adding more, it's about being specific. So for example, instead of just telling me that you managed a team, you managed a team of 25. Instead of just saying that you increased sales by a certain amount. Start with a verb in the past tense. You'll notice all the other examples that we've already gone through, all the other accomplishment examples, they all started with a verb, a strong action verb in the past tense. So what I'd recommend you do is start your bullet points, your accomplishment statements, with verbs like managed, directed, oversaw, coordinated, spearheaded, that kind of thing. Or better yet, increased, decreased, reduced, improved. Those kind of action verbs imply benefit, imply action. Never start with the phrase responsible for. Anyone who's ever heard me speak on this subject knows that I call those the two most boring words in resume writing. And the reason is, whatever follows responsible for sounds like a job description, and job descriptions are boring. We're not interested in what you were supposed to do, which is all it tells us. I want to know what you actually did. That's the essence of an accomplishment. So that's how it's done. To conclude, let me just give you 3 additional tips to help you sort of, again, organize your accomplishments and write them in the best way. First off, when you do write down all of your amazing accomplishments into your resume and into LinkedIn, prioritize them in terms of otherwise, like the most important. Very often what I'll do is I'll start with the most important or the most impressive. I'll include others, and then maybe the last one I want to make really sound fantastic as well, so they leave and they're left with that last impression. But you want to prioritize those on the page. The second tip is, please don't, and I've seen it, please don't put down 32 accomplishment statements or 32 bullet points or however many. Maximum number, 7. Magic number, 5. I'm not kidding. 3 to 7 is sort of the sweet spot. Anything more than that, seriously, not a good idea. And lastly, many of you are thinking, I don't want to take credit for what the team did because I was on that team or I led that team. I understand that. What I want you to do in your accomplishment is clarify your role on that team. So if you were part of a team that achieved something, you can say, played a key role on the team that did this. Or if you led the team or managed the team, say, managed the team that achieved this. So that's it in terms of building accomplishments. I wish you the very best. My name is Ross McPherson, and good luck to you.